Good evening. Welcome to Candidates Night. My name is Bob Harb. I'm the town moderator, and I'm also going to be moderating this Candidates Night. I appreciate you coming out, especially in these times, and those of you watching at home on cable or on replay in cable, thank you for taking the time. It's very important that we take the time in this election period to listen to the candidates, and hopefully we're going to ask them a lot of good questions tonight, and I hope you have the opportunity to hear their answers. Before we start, I always start all the meetings with a pledge. Can I ask you all to please rise and join with me in a pledge to Old Glory? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. I'm now going to introduce one of the library trustees, Mr. Jim Peck. He has a few words he'd like to say. After that, I'll go through the rules of tonight's presentation, and then we'll get going. Mr. Peck.
Good evening, and welcome to everybody to Candidates Night 2021, believe it or not. We've been doing these Candidates Nights for 60 years, not me personally, but people before us, so it's a big tradition in town. We're very happy to be here in the Public Works Garage. It's usually held at the library, but we felt it made more sense to do it here for safety reasons. And so for those of you at home, we do have, I'm going to say, 25 people here in the garage. And we're happy that we want to thank the town manager, Mr. Pearson, who's sitting in the back there, and Dana Robito, who's sitting over there, for their gracious offer to let us use the garage tonight.
Okay.
We also have people on cable, as usual, Channel 17. So hi to everybody at home at Channel 17. And we also have people live streaming and on Facebook. And we also added tonight a GoToWebinar feature, which is like Zoom. And if you need to ask questions, if you're on GoToWebinar, for anybody that can hear my voice on GoToWebinar, you will not be shown, you will not be videoed, but we will hear your voice if you have a question. You will come in unmuted, and then Scott from the library will unmute you in a queue, and you'll be able to ask your questions. We'll figure it out as we go along here. I do want to thank Dean Zanello, who's done a usual stellar job with the all the different technical stuff that we have to do here for tonight. I also wanted to say that the library is still very active, even though we're not open. We are open on appointment, and also for curbside. So just so you know that you can call the library and get into the library fairly easily, I understand. Okay, so we've arranged the tables up here for the candidates, and I think there's 5 tables. We have 3 panels tonight, and Bob will take you through the panels. The first panel will be 2 unopposed candidates. There'll be the school board and the Katie Knutson from the school board and Tom Alberti from the planning board. So it's kind of a unique panel. They won't be asked the same questions, but that's what we thought we would do. Then we'll take a break in between the next panel, sanitize the stations, bring up the budget committee. The 4 budget committee candidates will come up in these 4 tables here, and then we'll go through the questions for the budget committee, and then after that we will again take a break, sanitize the tables, and then we'll bring up the 3 selectmen candidates. And if I'm not mistaken, all the candidates are here tonight, and we'll find out in a minute. 2 hours allotted for tonight. We may go longer, we may go shorter. I'm betting on, I don't know if I'm going to bet. Let's see if we get exactly 8:30. Let's try that. So we're very fortunate to have Bob Harb as our moderator. He always does a great job, and we appreciate that. We also have Norm Major, who's the assistant moderator over there. He's got the timer. He's got the job to make sure that people stick to the times. We do have some time frames, and Bob will go over those in a minute. So without any further ado, I'll turn it over to Bob.
Thank you, Jim, and I thought you were here all those 60 years. Before we get going, I was reminded to maybe remind everybody of the following. Every year, the town puts on training for all elected officials. You're expected to attend the training, and so if you get elected, and you're probably going to hear some people say, I've never been running for office or I haven't been elected. You don't need to worry about it. There will be training for all elected officials. So just be aware of that so you don't have to feel sort of like, gee, I don't know what's going on. So I think that's a great thing that the town does that. For tonight, the time frame is this. The candidates will have 90 seconds, every candidate, to introduce themselves and say whatever they want for 90 seconds. And then questions will be asked of the panelists up here. And every panelist will answer the same question for their group. As Mr. Peck said, we only have one for budget, one for school board, one for planning, so there's nobody to offset. But all the others, we have more than two, so you're going to get a chance to all answer the same question. We're going to alternate who goes first, but everyone will have 60 seconds to answer the same question. Then we're going to finish with a 60-second wrap-up. Everyone will get a 60-second wrap-up. Now you heard Jim talk about we're going to take some questions from the floor. You're welcome to come up to the microphone, speak your question. You can stay there and get your answer, or you can sit back in your seat and listen to everybody answer your question. And then we'll ask for a question from online. We have quite a few questions for budget and selectmen, so we may ask for the group here and online in between to sort of break it up so they're not all just the emailed in questions. Now we have a real fancy system here, so everyone will be told when they have 10 seconds left, and here's what you're going to be told.
10 seconds.
So thank you, Mr. Major. So we don't have a bell, we don't have a ringer, we don't have anything. I was going to go to church and get a bell, but sometimes they put them away too. So there's no bells, no ringers, and he thought his phone wouldn't make a loud enough ring. So just listen up when you hear Norm say 10 seconds, that's what you got, 10 seconds. And I don't have a fancy button here to shut off your mic. Somebody asked me that because they're already planning on speaking overtime, I guess. We won't mention who that is. But, we're not going to really give you the hook, but, for the sake of everybody, try to stay, when you have 10 seconds, try to stay within 10 seconds. So, and those are the rules. They're pretty simple. The questions were all addressed to the group, not to individuals. And we did look at the questions. They're all great questions. So for the first round, I'd like to invite up on my left, Tom Alberti, running for planning board, and on my right, Katie Knutson, running for school board. While Katie's heading up there, I'm glad to know that she pronounces her name Knutson, because my favorite person in the world is Knut Rockne. And I always remember that movie with Ronald Reagan in it that played the Gipper, and I went to Notre Dame, so I got to meet the Gipper, and I got to meet Pat O'Brien once too, so Knutson, thank you. All right, so first question goes, first you get to introduce yourselves. We're going to go to the lady first. Okay. We're going to let Katie go first. Norm will tell you when you have 10 seconds, and you have 90 seconds to introduce yourself.
Should I just push this?
You should be able to speak without pushing anything.
Can you all hear me? Yes. All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Katie Knutson, like you said. I relocated to Plaistow with my family last year after my husband accepted the town's fire chief position. We have 2 children, a daughter who goes to Pollard and a son who goes to Crest Collaborative. We've always been very involved in our children's education, especially with our son being special needs and needing an IEP. A little bit about my background for the last 10 years. I was a firefighter critical care paramedic for a very busy fire and EMS service that was next to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. We have about 12 million visitors come through there, and 10 million of them came through my town. In that tenure, I was promoted to lieutenant, and I was placed over the Division of EMS. Some of the roles and responsibilities that I had to do were to do curriculum development, direct delivery of continuing education, maintaining state compliance with the state audit, and doing quality assurance. I also had to maintain and develop relationships with other agencies, such as the Assistant District Attorney's Office, the National Park Service, and other fire, EMS, and police agencies in the region and the state. Since moving to Plaistow, I was fortunate and honored to be able to be a part of the search committee in conjunction with the school board to help find the new superintendent. I really enjoyed that process. I enjoyed working with the people, and once I found
10 seconds.
Once I found that the school board position was open, I jumped at it, and I feel that the skills that I used in the fire service can be directly related to this position. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. And Tom, you have 90 seconds.
Thank you. I posted this on social media, but I also feel that it represents myself. So my name is Tom Alberti. I am running for a voting member position on the planning board, where I'm currently an alternate member. A little background: after growing up in Massachusetts and then stops in Atlanta and South Florida, my wife and I have raised our twin daughters in Plaistow since moving here 16 years ago. They're juniors in high school right now at Timberlane. I've coached all sorts of youth sports, served on the rec commission in town, and I also currently am the head coach of the Timberlane High School girls lacrosse program. Some people have questioned what the value is in sharing that information. I feel it's very important because it shows that we have commitment, passion, and investment in our town, and we care about it. So as they say, we aren't doing it for the pay, but we do it to have a positive impact in town. Professionally, working as an account executive managing the healthcare supply chain for a major provider in Massachusetts. Prior to that, I worked in building product supply chain for 10 years. While I'm still learning about the planning process, I do have construction background and the management of a major business involving contracts, guidelines, policies, laws, and regulations. That lends itself to the detail and process involved and required in this role. And one of the things I mentioned was that interest in the planning board typically occurs when
10 seconds.
we ask, what are we doing in this town? And what's going in here and what's going in there? And that's sort of what lent me to bring myself to this role. And I will have, anybody has any questions about what I'm committed to, please see my social media post about what I'm looking to do as a planning board member. Thank you.
So as an on deck, Tom, I regret to tell you, we only got one question emailed in for you. So we're going to go right to the audience after that one question, then we're going to go online and see how many more questions we can get from the audience and online. So the question that was right in, Tom, what do you think are the 3 top goals for the planning board? What would you like to see them do, the 3 top things in the next year?
Well, one of the things I didn't get to say, but I wrote about, was that I think that we serve 3 roles on the planning board. Number 1 is to regulate and make sure that applicants, developers, builders, residential, commercial, follow the rules, right? And then the second thing that we need to do is to look at what can we do in terms of authoring things like warrant articles to help the town protect its values, right? So I think that we are defined by the fact that we're have a lot of development in town, but we also have a small town charm, and I think that we want to keep that. But we want to develop in a way that's smart for the community, serves our tax base, it serves our tax revenue, but I want these businesses to serve the citizens and not just the businesses themselves that come here because of the value of being right across the border, right? There's tax advantages and whatnot.
10 seconds.
So we see these types of stores. And lastly, I think we should protect the abutters in town. And then one more thing, we serve a role to work on the master plan. What's our vision for the future? How should the development in this town look like? And I think we serve an important role working with the planning department on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. So now I ask anyone in the audience if you want to come up and ask Tom a question. This is your chance. The photographer was moving. I thought he was going to come up. Come on, somebody must have a question for Tom. Here we go.
Hey, Tom, I'm Bob Kincaid at Old County Road. So I'm curious if you know what's going on at the corner of Old County Road. There's a plot of land up there across from MB Tractor, and so I heard a little bit about that on Facebook. I'm curious if you can say, it seemed like they were going to try to develop something, but it got denied. Just curious what's going on up in that. I live right there, so I'm kind of curious.
Sure. I think that as a planning board member, there's certain things we can and can't talk about publicly, and that's something I'm going to learn about. But I understand that the person who wanted to develop that parcel of land was looking to do something that wasn't currently in how the zoning was directed. So, that's part of the following the rules and the processes. Personally, when I think of development in this town, I don't think of more warehouses, more tire stores, more car stores, or construction and things like that. I think about businesses that citizens want to utilize. I want to see aesthetically pleasing businesses. And frankly, I'd like to see a lot of redevelopment of current parcels of land. I think that it's there, it's already commercial, and if we do it right, I think it'll be, pleasing. In terms of what that
10 seconds.
business is looking to do, I think that they have to work through some rules and regulations, including code enforcement and the zoning board.
Thank you, Tom. Now, this is new to me. We're going to go online to the internet and get a question from the internet. And I ask our friends from the library, Scott, you got somebody online from the internet, a question for Tom?
We have no questions at this time.
Oh, I don't believe it. Come on. We got one here. We'll give them 10 more seconds. They're getting up courage, Tom. I don't know. You scared them away. I'd play the Jeopardy music, but I don't have it. I guess we're a go. Nobody? All right. Well, Tom, I guess those are any other questions from the audience? Yes, we have another question.
Yes, Julian Kishka, 1 Maybury Avenue. And I just want to give you a question because zoning questions are pretty difficult for most of the people. They're very confusing to read. And I just want to get your interpretation in simple words for the public because there is an article, Z21-9, that's talking about commercial 3. Could you just basically explain what commercial 3 is and why it's going to happen? And I think it's going to go in line with what you said before.
Yeah, great question, and I actually had some input on this, and I support it. Part of the role is to bring forth warrant articles. So right now, you've got the stretch of 125, basically from Haverhill up to State Line Pet Supply, Commercial 1. Very little restrictions. We have large businesses, lots of traffic. We know the impact. And then we have C2, which is our village district through Main Street, which has other protections, allowable space, where you can build what you can build, how big it is. And the stretch from State Line up to Kingston was also C1. So in essence, we could see another attempt. Maybe the space isn't there, but someone could say, I want to build a Walmart, or I want to build another tires, things like that. So the thought was, hey, how can we allow for the commercial
10 seconds.
aspect of this parcel of land, but not have another large business go in? So there was an effort to redefine it as C3. It's going to provide some additional restrictions, and I think it's going to help keep that as a commercial parcel, but not the large commercial parcels that we see.
Thank you. Any other questions from the audience? Any come back online, Scott?
No, sir.
Okay, so Tom, wrap up. You got 60 seconds for your wrap up.
Okay. Again, I think that my interest is what does the future of this town looks like? I call it home. And one of the roles that I got involved in, I had some questions about some planning things. And next thing you know, Jim, snagged me and grabbed me. But hey, I'm glad. I enjoy this. I enjoy serving the town. And I think that if we can have an impact on the future of what this town's going to look like, we're at this spot where it's changed drastically in the last 10 years. And I think it's going to continue to do so. So I think some strong members working closely with the town manager, the Board of Selectmen, and as well as the planning department, if we put forth our vision of what this town's going to look like, I think we can have a positive impact.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate you being here, and thanks for those answers. Now I turn to Katie. Katie, your first question. How supportive are you of a 5-day in-person education as soon as possible? Are you willing to go through any roadblocks in order to bring the students back 5 days a week?
So the main question is, do I support the students going to school 5 days a week, pretty much as possible? Okay. I do believe that. Our daughter is in Pollard, and we've seen, she went from 2 days on to 2 days being in school, 3 days with Zoom, and going back and forth with that. And, she loves being in school, assuming that all other students would like to be in school. So I do support, as soon as I'm able to meet with the school board and everything and their reasonings behind things, but I do support having kids in school 5 days a week as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you. So now next I'll go to the audience. Question for Katie, running for school board. Any questions? Can you approach the mic, ma'am?
Elaine Kindler, 30 Danville Road. Katie, I would like to know whether you are in favor of the Common Core curriculum.
Is that?
And the second question is the critical race theory.
Ooh, hit me with two, why don't you? As far as the Common Core, I'm not 100% sure because, we did come from Tennessee, so from state to state it is a little different, so I would need to get more information on that. Again, with the critical race theory, that is a touchy subject, and without having further information on that, again, I could not give you one answer or another on that at this time.
We'll try the internet again. We don't get questions from the internet, we may not take them from the internet next time. No questions? Well, I'm going to give them 5 seconds, and while I do that, I'm going to throw a personal item into Katie. My great-grandfather was born in Jackson, Tennessee.
Really?
Then he moved from Jackson, he left Tennessee and went to the Indian Territories in Oklahoma.
Oh, wow.
And I had a chance to visit Jackson, where he was born. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Anything online? No. Okay, I have one more question from the sign-ins. What do you think you will do or can do to bring down expenditures and the cost of the schools?
So in order to answer that question, I would need to see go into the budget and just see. I'm not from here, so I'm kind of behind the 8 ball on that because I need to see what's going on with that. I do not believe in just cutting a budget at the bottom. I do believe in going line by line and actually figuring out and cutting costs. But then I also do understand as every year goes by, cost of living and other things do increase. So, I don't want my taxes to go up any more than anybody else does, so.
Thank you. Audience? I see 2 people. Oh. You've stirred them up, Katie.
Why not? I'll do one more. There was some conversation online, some debate, if you will, on the foreign language for elementary students program. I've got kids that are in 6th grade, my older son who's in 10th grade. I think it was a pretty good program, but I think basically the spirit of, as I understand it, why the board primarily decided not to do it was financial. They wanted to show some cost savings because there's a significant desire among the voters. But on the other side, you've got the budget committee, which basically said, we're going to fund it. So you've got the school board saying they're going to get rid of it, the budget committee saying we're going to fund it, and then the deliberative body, which is us, we came here in preparation for the ballot, and we also supported that budget, which included those funds. So how do you reconcile the difference, and how do you see the difference between the mandate of the school board versus the mandate of the budget committee, and how do you reconcile a situation like that where you've got funding for something from one board and an initiative to get rid of it from another board?
Thank you for your question. So, again, I guess once I'm elected and get in there, I would like to just see what the reasoning behind the board is. I know that the board is privy to information that maybe the general public is not. And then just find out where the breakdown in communication was between the budget committee and the school board itself.
Another question from the audience.
Brian Stack from 20 Partridge Lane. Katie, 2021, we just ended 2020, and you choose to run for school board? My goodness, thank you for doing that. My question for you is, you're coming on at a very interesting time. Challenges in education between post-COVID work that has to be done, a brand-new SAU being formed, and a brand-new superintendent. So my question is just simply, what are you hoping to accomplish as a board member? What's your top priority in the first 3 years, in the first year?
So in the first one, I would like to get in there and see exactly what direction does the board want to go. But I think right now, the top priority is finishing developing our own SAU. And then honestly, what I would like to see happen is that this school district becomes the district that is the model district for other districts to look to, that, you know, they want to look to us and be like, we want to do what they're doing. I wanted to do that when I was in the fire and EMS service. You know, our division of EMS was extremely good, very progressive, and we had other agencies asking us, you know, hey, what are you doing? We like what you're doing. Can we borrow it? That's what I want to see this district to become.
Thank you. Any other questions from the audience? For the last time, anything online, Scott?
We have a question from the internet.
That's wonderful. But I don't know how they're going to speak because you said this is brand new.
I'm just going to read it to you.
Okay.
Do you think high schoolers should go to school later in the day than they do now?
So the question is, do I believe that the high schoolers should start going to school later in the day than they do now? Is that correct? Well, you know, I don't know. I don't know what time they start now. I mean, so I really can't answer that question. I mean, honestly, I'd rather get going earlier in the day so I can be done with my day and have more of the day to spend. So couldn't answer that question right now.
Any more from the internet, Scott? That's it? Last call for the audience here. Well, Katie, I think it's time for your wrap-up. 60 seconds.
Well, thank you for the questions. I enjoyed this process. Once I'm elected and I'm in there, I want to say that I have a firm belief in accountability and doing the right thing, even though the right thing might not be the easiest or the most popular thing, but then again, it is the right thing. So, thank you.
All right, let's thank Katie and Tom. Thank you very much. We're going to take a short break. They're going to have desanitizing or sanitizing of the desks and the mics, and we'll be back with BudCom. So all the candidates for Budget Committee, get ready. Okay, so welcome back from our short break. We're now going to have some questions for the Budget Committee candidates. Again, to remind them, you have 90 seconds to intro. Everyone will have 60 seconds. All will answer the same question, and then you'll have 60 seconds to wrap up. So I'm going to start with my far left and ask Christina Cruz if she would introduce herself, and then we'll go to her right all the way down. Christina?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Christina Cruz. My husband and I moved here 15 years ago. We have 2 young sons, both who attend school in the Timberlane District. Formerly, I am the rec director here in town, and honestly miss it terribly, and wanted to give back to my community, and thought the best way that I could do that is to run for Budget Committee and give back to the community that I love.
Thank you. Jim was whispering in my ear here. He thinks I can tell on both sides of my ear. It's kind of difficult. Thank you very much, Christina. Next, we'll go to Phil Spidelleri. Phil.
Good evening. My name is Phil Spidelleri. I've lived in town for about 5 years now. I have an 8-year-old daughter who attends bakery school over in Kingston. Professionally, I'm an electrical engineer, work for a defense contractor up in Exeter, New Hampshire. I am a veteran of the United States Navy. I served 6 years active duty. I served in the Gulf War the first time around. The reason why I would like to run for the Budget Committee is I see some things happening in our country I'm not too happy about, and rather than be one of those people who sits around and complains about it and doesn't do anything about it, I want to get involved. I figured the Budget Committee is a good place to get started. I don't have any direct experience on budget committees, but I do have my household budget I have to run. I do run programs at work. I belong to several veterans organizations, VFW, the American Legion here in town, Plaistow Fish and Game. I've served on boards of directors. I've served as treasurer for a couple of those organizations, so I do have some experience working with numbers on that end of it.
Thank you, Phil. Next, Doug Thompson. Doug.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me. My name is Doug Thompson. I lived in Plaistow pretty much my 47 years on this earth with my lovely wife, who also lives here. We have 4 children. We all went to the Timberlane District. My 4 children also are in the Timberlane District. I've coached softball. I've coached baseball. I've helped several nonprofits in town. I'm the president of Plaistow Community Cares. I'm the treasurer of PACE. I'm also a CPA by trade. I was fortunate to start my job in 1998, starting at just barely over minimum wage as a junior staff accountant, with some hard work and some extra, night classes on the weekends and such. Somehow I found it to the top of the food chain. I'm a president of my CPA firm. I work with small businesses daily, helping them manage budgets, forecasts, projections, live within their means, become more efficient, and meet all their professional and entity goals. So I think I can bring that skill set to the budget. The budget committee working on becoming more efficient, understanding the numbers, and finding the best way to make everybody happy.
Thank you. Brian Stack. Brian.
Hi, everybody. My name is Brian Stack. Thanks for having me tonight. I think I echo some of Phil's comments about you could just sit back and watch, or you could get involved and help out. And I am been living in this community for over 30 years. I, like Doug, am also a graduate of Timberlane. My wife is too. We chose to raise our 5 children in this community. We love it here. This is, my goal joining the budget committee is just to try to make this town be the best that it can be, something that we can all feel proud about, to live in, have a quality of life, but recognize that we can do that at an affordable cost. I'm looking forward to that opportunity to just network with people, get to know the issues a little bit better, folks that are serving on some of the other boards, because we all have to be able to work together to make this happen. I have been by trade, I'm a high school principal in a neighboring community. I've been in educational leadership for 20 years, spent 6 years serving as the school board representative for Plaistow from 2000 to 2006. And I'm a long-standing board member for PACE. And I'm a big fan of this guy right here.
I think he was waiting for the 10 seconds. You want to tell him again, Norm? What's that sound like?
10 seconds.
10 seconds. There you go. Okay.
But seriously, Norm does represent something great about this town, giving back in so many different ways.
We all thank Norm for what he does, but that was beyond your 2 minutes.
No, I used my last 10 seconds for Norm before he could warn me.
We're going to go back to Christina. For the first question, you'll be the first to answer, and we'll go down the line. And then, accordingly, the next would be Phil to answer the next question first. The BudCom has had some difficulty getting financial information from the town. How would you rectify this situation? Start with Christina.
Getting information from the town, I guess I would probably want to know why they are having trouble getting information. I mean, most of the information is pretty forthcoming. I can't imagine working with the town employees or the town manager that would be an issue. So I think I would need a little more information on regards to what exactly the process is happening and where it's lacking in order to figure out how we're going to get the fiscal information that we need to move forward in our budget.
Okay, thank you. Next, Phil. Same question.
Yeah, I would just say that, what Christine was saying, I'm not really sure. I need more specifics on what kind of trouble they're having getting the information they're looking for. I've gone on the town website. It seems to be pretty easy to navigate. The departments are defined pretty well at the header on the web page, so I'm not really sure what kind of information they're looking for. But it would help to know what they're having trouble with.
I appreciate that, but that's all they wrote in for their question. And we can't, well, if they're listening on the internet, you're welcome to sign in and tell Scott some more details about your question, because that's where it came from. Doug?
Yeah, I guess try to find out what the roadblock was and try to get around that roadblock, whether it's better communication or explain your point of view, that this information is important to your job. I can't do my job if you don't share the information. So it's got to be a team effort and figure out how to get past that stumbling block.
Okay, great. Brian?
Yeah, I said in my opening remarks, I look forward to, if I'm elected, working with the other groups, the other departments. Building those relationships is key, because once you have that relationship, you pick up the phone, you call someone, they're going to want to speak to you and communicate with you because you recognize you have a partnership. That's how I operate in everything that I've done to date.
Thank you. Second question from the write-ins. We start with Phil, and then we go around the loop. What are your plans to rein in spending and lower property taxes? Are you more conservative or liberal with your spending philosophy? Phil?
I would say I am more conservative. For me, priorities would always be fire, police, and public works, our infrastructure, items like that. Keeping an eye on the bottom line on other expenditures. And obviously, for me, one of the learning processes I'm going to have is understanding how the tax rates are tied into how the budget is developed. I'm not quite sure I understand that process, but I'd be interested to see how that works, because it seems like they raise or they make decisions on taxes based on property values for the most part, and then they develop a budget. So I would be interested to see how the two tie together and go from there.
Thank you.
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to make a comment. Sometimes I feel up here like I'm Steve Harvey in a Family Feud, because he always repeats the question.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll do that.
Thank you.
Because he does that when he comes over with his card. What are your plans to rein in spending and lower property taxes? Are you more conservative or liberal with your spending philosophy?
I'm obviously more conservative with my spending philosophy, but I'm not going to cut the bottom line just for the sake of cutting the bottom line. You have to look line by line to see what potential savings or alternative methods could be to rein in costs. You can't blindly just say, I want to reduce property taxes and cut $1 million off the budget, because that doesn't do anybody any good. So it's going to be a thoughtful process working with the town and the department heads to figure out if there's any savings to be had or how to be more efficient with the current spending we do.
Thank you. And again, what are your plans, this is for Brian, what are your plans to rein in spending and lower property taxes? Are you more conservative or liberal with your spending philosophy?
Well, my wife and kids would say I'm the cheapest person that they know, but I would say I'm probably somewhere in the middle in terms of conservative or liberal. If our goal is to reduce taxes, we're chasing a moving target with increased costs. So at some point, we have to look at other ways that we can get creative with generating revenue and offsets to cover some of these increased costs. And we also need to take a hard look at some of the things we're trying to do and decide if they're needs and wants. We also have to recognize when we're taxed, about 3/4 of the taxes go to the school system. Only a small percentage do we have control over for the town, and we want to make sure that we get the bang for our buck.
Thank you. Now to Christina, same question. What are your plans to rein in spending and lower property taxes? Are you more conservative or liberal with your spending philosophy?
I think Brian stole my answer, but I agree with that. I am probably middle of the road. I look a lot on the houses that are for sale and realize that we have nothing for sale in Plaistow. Why? Because we're an awesome community. People come here for the community, so I think it's really important that we, as residents, understand that the school does take up a lot of our budget, and we have to make sure that we balance what we can offer our services. Police, fire, the infrastructure for public works, obviously very, very important. But I also believe in building a community, and there's a reason why people want to live in Plaistow, and it's because of those amenities that we have and that we offer that bring our residents together and form the community that is us.
Thank you, Christina. I have more questions for the Budget Committee, but I'm going to go to the audience for the next question. Does anyone in the audience have a question for the Budget Committee? If you do, Doug will start with the answer to your question. Any questions from the audience? I feel like an auctioneer. Yes, we're going.
Tom Alberti, I do want to ask, what your plan is to stop the trains from coming through during the session. No, but seriously, during the deliberative session, a gentleman proposed cutting the budget by somewhere around $800,000. I did not support that, but he made some great examples of line budgets where it was budgeted at $3,000 and that $1,700 was spent, but yet we budgeted at $3,000 again. And then, several examples of that. Will you guys be looking at line items like that and just not blindly, throwing that value as where it was the prior year?
No, absolutely. So part of my experience is I have done many audits with government agencies or entities that rely on government funding. And unfortunately, government has this mentality that if my budget's $1, I have to spend $1. Even if I need 70 cents, I have to spend $1. I've seen it firsthand with the state of Massachusetts, where they'll have $500,000 they have to spend on June 30th, so on June 28th, they buy 10,000 computers for the sake of buying 10,000 computers. And they'll go to a warehouse and distribute them after the fact, but we have to get past that point of, let's spend money, because if we don't, we're not going to get it next year. We'll worry about next year. Let's worry about savings this year.
So I have a hard time repeating all that Friend said.
You got to
but,
repeat it
No,
3
you
times.
don't need to repeat it.
You got it?
I got it, because I'd say most of what Doug just said, I would ditto. I approach things the same way. I've been helping build municipal budgets for 20 years, between the 6 that I was on the school board here and the 16 that I've done it for the next door school district. I look at line by line. I don't look at spending everything. We have to plan for some of the worst case scenarios, but we also have to be realistic about what our actual expenditures have been line by line over the last few years to help us gauge where to put that needle for the following year.
Christina?
Absolutely, I agree. When you start a process, you want to go step by step, and looking at budgets line by line is the way that you need to kind of look at it as an overview. But more importantly, I think too that, when you're looking at a budget line by line, you can also look where you can be creative, where there might be grants or other fundings or things like that that can offset the budget for a time to make it whole. So I think that's really important too, to have some sort of idea on how to be creative and bring more revenue into the town.
Thank you. Phil?
Well, it's no fun going last after everybody's already made such good points, so I can only echo what I've heard. I would say go back, 3, 4, 5 years, see where we may have had surpluses in the past and try and tailor our budgets going forward on some of those line items. Keeping an eye on, things that we may think we need more money for, we didn't need more money for, but kind of keep an eye on trends and then look forward to the future.
Thank you. Our friend, the internet. Do you have a question?
Yes, we have a question from the internet.
Okay, and this will be for Brian first, and then we'll go around.
Why do you think taxes in Plaistow are not going down like they do in some of the neighboring towns?
My honest answer, I don't think I have enough information to answer that question right now, but that's certainly something that I would take a look at. So I can't even speak to whether or not that's a true statement, and I want to acknowledge that.
Thank you. Christina?
I didn't hear the question in its
The
entirety.
question is, why do you think taxes are going down in other towns around us, but ours aren't?
Yeah, I wouldn't even have enough information to answer that. There's so many factors that go into building a budget and, assessments, and there's just too many facets to give that a solid answer.
Phil?
This one's a hot potato,
You're
right?
not last this time, Phil.
Yeah. I would just echo what I just heard. I would also say that, looking at my tax bill, I haven't noticed a major increase at all. It has increased somewhat, but I know that they do tend to take market values into account. The market is currently booming, so I don't know if that's having an impact on it or not, but I would need to see more information as well.
Thank you. Doug?
Yeah, if that statement is true, we're not sure what towns are going down, if any, and how do those towns compare to Plaistow as far as population mix, number of residents, number of commercial properties, and amenities. They could have different school systems, different needs. They could have outsourced some things that used to be in-house. There are so many variables that you can't blanket that question with one statement.
Thank you. Now we're going to go back to the write-in questions, and Christina, this will be yours first. Should the BudCom set a percentage growth target for the operating budget at the beginning of the budget process? If so, what should the target be for the 2022 budget?
I think it'd be really difficult to set a growth target when you don't know what you're looking at for expenditures. Overall, I think that you're looking at cost of living, you're looking at what, we just came out of COVID, so a lot of our numbers are going to be skewed. So I think it'd be really difficult to kind of nail down a number. I think that we need to look at what each budget is presented as, and then, again, go line by line to figure out whether or not the budgets need to stay as is, level funded, or they need to be decreased.
Thank you. Phil?
Well, I know that one of the upcoming warrants has to do with staffing the fire department 24/7. So obviously that's going to have an impact. And going forward, are they going to want to increase personnel there? So we're going to have to keep an eye on things like that. Cost of maintenance in our DPW, I'm sure, is going up with the cost of everything else. We're going to see some big increases in fuel costs and oil prices and everything else. That's going to impact just about everything that the DPW needs to do. So we're going to see some increase in cost there. So how that's all going to play out over the next couple of years, we'll just have to keep an eye on that and make sure we act fiscally responsible.
Thank you. Doug?
That's one way to go is cost of living as a mechanism to increase a budget, but I would take that cost of living and only use that in certain areas, maybe like in payroll-related items. I wouldn't necessarily apply that to repairs and maintenance because that's not really a true impact. So it's a theory that's applicable in some areas, but it's not applicable as a general rule.
Thank you. And Brian?
I don't disagree with anything any of the other candidates said thus far. I think they did a good job summarizing it. I think that, every budget, there are going to be some fixed costs that you're going to have to expect are going to increase, whether it's some utility costs or contractual obligations. I'd be a little nervous to just set a percentage that you're trying to stick to and then find a way to make it work. I'd much rather have an understanding of what it is we're trying to support in the budget and what it's going to cost to do that, and then look at it from there.
Thank you. Do I have another question from the audience? And Phil, you will be next.
Hey everybody, Jay DeRoche, Plaistow. How do you feel about having the department heads come in and discuss their budgets with you?
Start with Phil.
I am not familiar with how the process currently works. I would imagine that understanding where department heads stand and what their needs are would be an important part of any decision to be made. I don't know how involved that would be or how often they would want to come in and talk to us, but obviously I'd be open to hearing what departments have to say and understanding their needs and their situations and address it from there.
Thank you. Doug?
Good question, Jay. To be honest, I would not want it any other way. How can you set a budget for somebody or a department without talking to the people in that department? They know better than anybody else on the outside what their needs are. So anything short of that is inefficient and incomplete.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. It goes back to that trust piece, right? When you get to know the people that you're working with, you develop a trust with them. You want to talk to them face to face and hear it from the fire chief about what the needs are in the fire department, in the library, about what the needs are in the library. That's the only way that you can make an educated decision about what's best when you're dealing with a $10 million budget.
Thank you. And Christina? Wow.
Great question, Jay. I'm going to agree with Brian, an educated decision. I would love to see the department heads continue and present their budgets, but more so I would like to be able to have more of an open door with the employees so that we know ahead of time as budget committee what they're looking to do, what they're looking for, so we understand exactly how the department itself runs. As the former recreation director, there's a lot of funds that recreation deals with, and I think one of the struggles is making sure that everybody understands what those funds stand for, what an impact fee is, what a revolving fund is, what it means to have a capital reserve fund. I think it's really important to build that relationship with the department heads so that you feel that you can go to them with any questions that you may have, and then you build that relationship and your budget will show it.
Thank you. Any internet questions? Not at this time. Do we have another question from the audience? This will be for Doug first.
Greg Talon, Plaistow. We in Plaistow enjoy some phenomenal benefits in terms of police department, fire, highway. All of our, what I would call our needs have been satisfied. We also enjoy a number of wants, like curbside pickup of our trash, recreation, and other types of things like our library. If we were to cut the budget, would you be willing to cut some of those needs, and how would you propose doing that? Thank you.
Cut the needs of the wants. I'm assuming you mean the wants. Look at the well, first of all, look at the overall budget and try to figure out how to maintain that. And then if there's a discrepancy and we have to cut somewhere, you know, again, start line by line. I mean, my children enjoy rec. I've coached for rec. I've enjoyed the services of the fire department. I can't give enough appreciation to the fire department. My kids go to the library. I grew up playing at Ingalls Terrace. Now my kids play at Park. So I've enjoyed all the amenities. So it's a matter of doing what's best for the citizens. If that's cutting something, then so be it. I don't know what that is because I don't know the line by line items, but you can't, there's a finite amount you can push the taxpayer before the taxpayer breaks. I personally have 2 relatives that had to sell their house and downsize and move out of town because of property tax. So I've seen this personally. There's a balancing act. So if things have to be cut, then unfortunately,
10 seconds.
it's not an easy decision to be made.
Yeah, I mean, Greg, you're asking the meat of the issue as to why we're here, right? So I think the first thing that we have to understand is we all might define differently what's a need or a want. One person's need is another person's want, you know? And I think in my role, I would not come in assuming that the way that I might define it is the way that the greater population in Plaistow might define it. So if we got to that point and we had 6 things that might be on the list, I'd want to find a way to get some information ahead of time from constituents as to what they see is going to have the greatest impact. And that, to me, would inform what becomes a need or a want. From my perspective, if I think something's a want and we can't do it with the town, I'll find another way to do it for my own family if that's what need be. It's not about what I need or want, it's about what we need as a community.
Thank you, Brian. Christina?
I agree. I think I should have sat next to Brian. I definitely think that overall that we need to define what everybody considers a want versus a need. Do I want a 24/7 fire department? Yep. Do we need it? Probably. Do we need a police department? Yes. So like those sort of things, like you know that those are kind of no-brainers. Do I love recreation? Do I love baseball? Absolutely. Do I consider it a want? Maybe not. So I think it's important to like really see what our residents want, what they need, what they consider as imperative. I look at all of the warrant articles and how few don't pass. So you look at all these warrant articles, they're adding to our budget, right? Every warrant article that we have adds to our budget. And 9 out of 10 of them are passing. So are those
10
all
seconds.
wants or are they all needs? So I think that it's important to go to the residents and find that answer.
Thank you, Christina. And Phil, last for this question.
Yeah, I would say ultimately it comes down to the people of the town and what they're going to vote for, what they're going to determine what wants and needs are. Certainly as a budget committee, we need to take their trends and what they voted for in the past into account and what they would deem important enough to be a want or be a need, and then try and determine what a want would be. But ultimately, it's going to be up to the town during the second deliberative session to vote for those warrants.
Thank you, Phil. I believe we have a question from the audience.
Yes, Jim Peck, I'm asking as a citizen, not as the whatever. Here's my question for you. who does the Budget Committee report to? And if you don't know, by law, who do you think the Budget Committee should report to?
Start with Brian.
Why do I have to be the one to start that? I'm get intimidated by, I mean, look, I think that we report to our citizens in Plaistow, ultimately. I mean, we're elected by the citizens of Plaistow to perform a job. We try to do so to the best of our ability, working with the other departments and the other elected officials that serve in other areas. That ultimately is who we report to. Is that it? I don't know if that gets at the question. That's what I think.
Okay, thank you. Christina?
Agreed. I mean, we are responsible to the citizens. The citizens are the ones who put us in these chairs, and they put their trust in us to do the best of our ability to have a balanced budget. But I think it's more than that. I think that it's working with the Board of Selectmen, it's working with the town manager, the employees. I think that it's just not black and white. It's a group effort, and I think that it needs to move forward as one.
Thank you. Phil?
As a constitutional republic, I think that every elected official is answerable directly to the people.
Thank you. And last but not least, Doug?
So obviously, we represent the town, but I believe we're supposed to work with the Board of Selectmen. They create the budget, and we work with them and make proposals or changes. I mean, I could be wrong in that avenue, but obviously, we represent the citizens and try to do the best to make every citizen comfortable in the community we create.
Thank you. And now I think it's time for your wrap-up, and we're going to start in reverse order with Brian. You have 60 seconds to wrap up, Brian.
Everybody who has, in my opinion, everybody who has ever served in office in Plaistow deserves our thank you and our respect for your efforts that you've done to get us to where we are today. I would never try to come in thinking that we need to undo a decision or assume that bad decisions were made. I think that being elected to a board at this point, you have to respect the work that's already happened and look to continue that work and find additional ways to get better at what you do. I think you got 4 great candidates up here running for 3 great seats. I honestly would be perfectly fine if I was not the one elected and knew that these 3 were. I would be more than happy knowing that they've got my trust. I'm thankful for all of us throwing our hat in the ring to help out.
Thank you. Doug?
Thank you for your time tonight. I'm looking forward to the opportunity. Budgets are very interesting to me. It's something I live and sleep numbers. I love numbers. I love analyzing them. I've been fortunate to talk to 2 current budget committee members. I've talked to a couple of selectmen to get a better understanding of the purpose and the frustrations the prior committee had, and I'm looking forward to making progress and change and kind of build some bridges to work with the town to make progress.
Thank you. Phil?
And I'd like to thank you all for allowing me to be here tonight and giving me the opportunity to speak. It's the first time for me. It's a little nerve-wracking, but I'm glad that I at least threw my hat in the ring and gave it a go, and I would certainly appreciate your vote. But I echo Brian's comments that I think that all the candidates up here have answered the questions remarkably well, and that's really all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Christina?
I'd like to thank you all for having me here tonight. I agree, it's a little nerve-wracking sitting up here having all these eyes looking at you. But I do look forward to serving in this capacity as a budget committee member and bringing my knowledge and experience from creating budgets and managing budgets myself to the town.
Well, thank you very much. How about a round of applause for the Budget Committee candidates? Thank you very much. As they say, you're free to go. And now we'll take a short break while we sanitize these 4 tables.
I don't know.
Get the thumbs up. I got the thumbs up. All right, so we're all set to start again. Welcome back. This is the final segment of tonight's candidates night for the 3 candidates for the Select Board. Again, to repeat the rules, they have 90 seconds to introduce themselves. They will have 60 seconds to answer the questions. We will alternate who goes first on the questions, and then they will have 60 seconds to wrap up. So we're going to start first, as I did the last couple of times, on my left, with Bill Coye. How do you say your name, Bill?
Coye.
Coye.
My family couldn't afford that extra L.
Well, we'll put it in anyway. And I'll still count that at the ballot, don't worry, okay? So we'll start with Bill and move down on my right. So you have 90 seconds, Bill.
Hi, I'm Bill Coye. Just a little bit quick about me. I moved into town with my family in 1997, so we're coming up on 24 years. I've raised 4 children in this town. They're all in their 20s. They all went right up through the school system. I probably started volunteering in this town probably about 1998 through baseball, and then it became softball. Then eventually that moved into becoming a member of the Recreation Commission, which I've been a member of since probably about 2003, 2004. I now am still currently on the Recreation Commission as the chair for probably about the last 6 or 7 years. One thing being on Recreation, especially the chair, I have had to be part of the budget process every year. I've had to learn how to work with other departments within the town. I've had to work with fire, police, the highway, town hall, really everybody in town to help get things done. And I think that's something that we kind of need to get back to, everybody working together again to make things right.
Thank you. Daryl.
Hello, my name is Daryl Britton, and I've lived in town since 1965. God, I feel old compared to the rest of you. It's awful, except for you, Norm. I have been here and for probably 35 years plus. I've been involved off and on with the town. I've served in everything. I started out in the Recreation Commission and worked my way through all the boards and ultimately went to the Board of Selectmen, and now I'm on the Budget Committee again. I live here with my wife. We have 3 children, 4 grandchildren, and I thought at this point in time, I'm semi-retired. I'm vice president of Fulcrum Corporation, and I have some time now. So I felt as though it was good to give some more back to the town.
Thank you. Julian.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Harb. I'm Julian Kishka. I have been serving as your selectman for the last 6 years. I take the honor of serving as your selectman very seriously. I serve the best interest of all Plaistow citizens, not just the select few or my favorite businesses. I'm a veteran, having earned a military retirement from the Navy and the submarine service and the Army. I had deployed to the Middle East. I had a long and successful career in the high-tech industry and roles such as product support engineer, technical training specialist, and technical writer. I'm a hardworking selectman that has served on almost every committee in the Plaistow. I have attended nearly 50 classes provided by the New Hampshire Municipal Association. I will continue to keep up to date, and I'm also a Rockingham Planning Commissioner. I founded the Energy Committee, which was already completed many projects in Plaistow, like the library, town hall, LED conversions, as well as the new LED streetlight conversions. The yearly savings are in the tens of thousands of dollars now and into the far future. I will continue to bring down the operating costs. I am fiscally conservative. My number one job is to keep your taxes down while maintaining a high quality of life. Not an easy task. I always make decisions based on the long-term good of the town. It was clear from the day I became a selectman that our town needed an alternate source of water, which became obvious during the drought of 2016, when people's wells ran dry. So many residents also had polluted and unsafe water. I am proud to be part of the team bringing safe potable water to Plaistow. Please vote for me so I can continue to serve you. Thank you.
Thank you, Julian. So now our first write-in question. We'll start with Bill and move down the line. Please identify a few points or issues that you believe selectmen should focus on and explain why you think they are important. Bill?
Well, I think the 2 big things are already in front of us right now that need to continue to be addressed. Obviously, trash recycling is one. It looked like there was already a contract in place, but then it became, through the citizens, they wanted the curbside recycling, so now that has to be looked at once again. And I think that's probably the one thing that has to be done almost immediately. because the current contract will run out at the end of the year, so that has to be looked at immediately. The other issue is water, to make sure as water comes into town, that, and the way it is set up right now with the enterprise fund and everything, that it will just stay with the people using the water and it won't get passed on to the taxpayers that do not want to get hooked up. That's something we need to continue, and we need to make sure through the fire suppression that the money keeps going back into that enterprise fund to pay for future development in the town to bring water to everybody that wants it.
Thank you, Bill. Daryl?
There's two things that really are my main focus. One is near and dear to me, and that's providing some sort of affordable housing for our elderly. So many people I know in this town are my age or older, and they're in a position where they're going to have to either move out of town because they can't take care of their home and go to another community or another state. So I would try to work very, very hard to try to get some sort of generation of privateers to come in and build some sort of housing for the elderly where people that lived here all their life can finish their life here. The other thing that is obviously near and dear to all of us is the budget. I'm not saying that our budget is a killer,
10
but
seconds.
it is. And we have to take and do something about it along with the school system. Thank you.
Thank you, Daryl. Julian?
Yeah, thank you, Bob. Yes, one of the things is the budget and bringing down the taxes, which is a very difficult task. Yes, we have to have trash removal, or else we all live in a dump. So those are things that we have to address. We're trying to do our best on that. Water, I've been a part of that since the very beginning. We need good, clean, without water, you don't have anything. You can't even bring good businesses into town without water. And also, people drink unhealthy water and don't even know it. So, and another big thing is we do have I'm going to agree with my fellow candidate here. We have a housing shortage in Plaistow. One, because yes, people want to live here. And B, because people have families and they grow up here and they can't find a place to live, so they have to move away. Or people move away because they can't pay their taxes. So you can't expand the community and move to the future without moving to the future. But you have to control how you do it so you can keep your community the same as it's been. And also, the last thing is civility. You have to have civility between boards. If you don't have that, you can't work together and you can't perform progressive tasks that progress you forward.
Thank you, Julian. And Julian, can you maybe move your mic closer because I'm having a hard time hearing you sometimes. Thank you. This next question will start with Daryl, and it was already mentioned the topic. What is your position on curbside recycling?
Well, I think curbside recycling is something that you just can't ignore. It's not the days when you went to the dump and just put everything in there. It's something that is now, it's going to be for the future and forever. I really am very, very strongly in favor of having some sort of curbside recycling. No matter what the percentages are and what the return is, I think we have to do something with it.
Thank you. Julian?
Yes, curbside recycling, unfortunately, has become very expensive. However, we don't want to just take everything and throw it in the trash because there's no place to put it. I mean, decades ago, generations ago, they thought the cheapest way was to just take all the trash and dump it on a landfill. And we're still paying for that today, and we're going to pay for it into the future because there are regulations now. It's a very difficult subject. Trying to do the right thing and still to be able to afford it and to live is a great big balancing act. But I do support recycling, and I think it is the right thing to do. We just have to possibly find a better way to do it.
Thank you. Bill?
Unfortunately, what has happened with recycling is just the cost has gone up. Nobody wants to take it anymore. But eventually, I think that's going to change because it's going to have to change. There's only so many landfills out there, and they're filling up. So I think once everybody figures out the right way to get rid of it, that it'll help. I'm definitely in favor of curbside recycling with the pickup. I think if you look at the citizens, not every citizen, if we had a place to take it to, could get it there. Not everybody has the means. So I think it's definitely important to keep the curbside recycling. And I think through this whole process that we've just been through I think the majority of the citizens of town have really kind of spoken about it. And the deliberative money did get put back into the budget to make sure that was covered towards the end for the end of the year. So I am definitely in favor of curbside recycling.
10 seconds.
And pickup.
Thank you, Bill. The next question, we'll start with Julian. The rec department runs in the red every year. Summer daycare is at 1990s prices and subsidized by taxpayers. Some on Social Security, small pensions. Some can hardly pay for medicine and food. What is your idea of how can the rec department operate in the black?
Difficult question without seeing every single detail, but recreation is important. People have to have recreation. There are people that, to some people it is a need, and to some people it's a want. Depends on where you are in the town, your age, whether you have children or not, et cetera, et cetera. You have to look at all the things and try to, as any organization, look at what parts are absolutely necessary to make things happen, to be successful, to get your goal. Your goal is to have recreation, and then be able to decide where can I improve the way I do things, and maybe I can get the same thing done at a lower cost. Maybe you can't. It's a balancing act. They have limited expenses. They're trying to serve an entire community. It's been worse during the COVID-19 COVID-19 crisis. And yes, the rec director has a lot of, a big task on their shoulders.
Thank you. Bill?
Recreation definitely serves an important purpose in town. It really takes care of everybody, from the littles to the older population as well, and everything in between. I think what people really don't understand with recreation a lot of times, that it does take revenue in as well. The average year for recreation, they'll take in between $80,000 to $85,000 in revenue that gets returned back to the general fund. This year they started renting out fields as well. That brought in over $10,000. And with any luck, maybe that might get a little bit harder this year. So that starts bringing that price a little bit closer. I don't think anybody sees that revenue amount on recreation. They just see what that one item, what the dollar amount is on the budget. So there is an offset there. Sure, there are certain things we can do, but recreation is important to the community. There are concerts that are done, all kinds of different activities, not only for the children, but also for the older population as well. So I think recreation does its best. There probably are some areas we could look at to try to tighten it up a little bit.
Thank you, Bill. Daryl?
Yeah, I think that recreation, like a lot of departments, could be compartmentalized and pretty close, if not close, self-sustaining. I feel as though that if they knew that their budget was what they were going to take in, with probably a minor subsidy, then it would probably be less of a burden on the town and the town's people. I think that you would then adjust the prices accordingly. Maybe you have to charge a little bit more for something and a little bit less for other things. But I think that if it's taken into account as a department, almost like a small franchise, and that money was used and for what it takes in to give back into it, it could be very successful.
Thank you, Daryl. Go to the audience. A question for the selectmen. Someone in the audience.
I'm going to read from a quote. I'm Bob Kincaid, Old County Road. A quote I saw on Facebook from a school board member. Basically, she said there's been $1.5 million in lost revenue from the state. Is there anything, and this is something we constantly have to deal with, and we're constantly talking about budgets, constantly talking about ways to get money back. Is there anything that can be done, that should be done, from the Board of Selectmen to help encourage and to basically send back the message that we need to stop that practice and the towns are really hurting? Do you agree with that statement, first of all? And if so, is there anything that you think should be done about that?
We'll start with Bill on
Yeah,
that.
I'm not really sure totally of the question, exactly what she's looking for.
Basically, it's the fact that the money coming into the town,
Yep.
we're at a loss of $1.5 million in lost revenue coming in from the state. And that's something that the school board side is having to deal with more so than the town side, but it affects all of us. It affects the taxes that people blame you
Okay,
guys
so it's a
for.
school board,
So it's
it's a school board budget,
The question
okay.
is, but it's a school board budget, but it affects the town because
Sure
we're
it
not
does.
getting the money from the state. So and we've got 2 state reps here, how do we encourage our state reps to basically say, we need to stop, we need to continue to get the money that we were getting?
Yeah, I think that we gotta work on the state reps, right? Talk to them and try to get more money put back towards the towns. I mean, as you look at our budget, that's what's about 75% of our budget is the schools. And unfortunately, the state has pushed everything back towards the towns. That's the problem. So I think we need to get a hold of our state reps and drive that point home and see what can be done. That's where it needs to change, but every year it just keeps going up and up. Everything gets pushed back. You know, the pensions for the teachers get pushed back to the schools now, which gets pushed back to the towns. I mean, there's everything. I mean, I remember, you know, years ago when I first moved, it wasn't like that. The state gave a lot more to the towns, and I think we got to try to figure out how we can get the state to do that again.
Thank you, Bill. Daryl?
Well, I think that the state is feeling the budget crunch, as all the towns are and every other piece of municipal government. We, at this point, we're not going to get that extra money from the state right away, and especially from a year that it's been like that. But it's incumbent on the selectmen, with their representatives to the school board. Perhaps in the past, we would take and visit the school board, we would voice our concerns and hope that they could be a little bit more cognizant of the fact that we're short of money, and perhaps their budgets were going to have to be crunched as our budgets are being crunched every year.
Thank you. Julian?
Yes, I believe that question is probably geared toward the benefits and pension plans that the state has been funding for the teachers and employees at the school systems over the years. And each year they're cutting back a percentage and passing it back to the school districts that used to be paid for by the state, because again, they're in the budget crunch. And I'm not there, I'm not a state rep, and I don't know what all the discussions are at the state level and why they're doing that. I can only guess that what they're saying is, we've been giving you this money for years, and basically we're paying that tax too, because we pay state and we pay county tax. That's where that money comes from. So they may be saying, they're trying to push, I'm just guessing, they're trying to push the budgeting of that amount of money back to the schools and districts to say, now it's not coming in for free no more. How can you manage the process of how things are paid for and budgeted better? But it's really, you're paying for it in your state taxes too. It's not really free. So it's not really a selectman's question, but it is something that does affect your taxes, because yeah, it is 70 to 75% of your tax bill. And now it's coming back to the district level. So it's
Thank you,
a tough
Julian.
question.
Appreciate your answer. Nothing on the internet. So Daryl, you're next to answer a write-in question. Start with you. Do you support Article P2107, 24-hour coverage for EMTs, firefighters, and hazardous response personnel? If so, or if not, why?
Yeah, as a budget committee member, we do support it. I shouldn't say we did, I did. At first, I was a little skeptical because I felt as though over a long period of time it was going to be extra money. But now as I look at it and I see how the town has grown, and believe me, nobody hates to see more town personnel than I do. But that's one place I feel as though it's absolutely necessary. I just don't see a way around it, especially when they laid out to us how many calls there are in those off hours when the local fire volunteers can't be here. So yes, the answer is I support it now.
Thank you. Julian?
Could you repeat the question again? I only heard
Do you
part of it.
support the 24-hour coverage for EMTs, firefighters, and hazardous response personnel? If so, or if not, why?
Well, every minute counts when you get emergency response. I know people will say we've had very good service from the police departments and the fire department, and I've seen my neighbor's house on fire, and I see just how fast they respond, but maybe a couple minutes earlier could have saved a life. We've been lucky in this town. We haven't had any fires that have basically caused loss of life, and you're going to pay for it now, or what's the cost of a life? And I think the fire chief explained very well at one point how many cents a day that was only for a resident to have that extra. It sounds like a lot of money, but when you broke it down by resident, how many cents a day it was, I might say that it's worth it.
Thank you, Julian. Bill?
I support the warrant article. I think it's wanted that the town just has become bigger through the years. That's kind of really the bottom line. One thing, you really can't put a price on somebody's life or personal property. And the one nice thing about this warrant article too, it's not going to increase the number of employees. They're just going to increase the hours of employees, so there won't be an additional cost towards benefits or anything like that. It's just more hours to the people, and they will be instead of being home, they will be in the fire station. And the other thing that's nice about too, where it is a warrant article, the people of the town get to vote on it if that's what they want, and that's how it should be. The townspeople should always have a choice, especially for a ticket item as big as that.
Thank you, Bill. Anything from the internet yet? Nothing from the internet. Another question from the crowd? Come on to the mic. Julian, you'll be first to answer this question.
Hello, Tom Alberti, Ridgewood Road. So I'm trying to figure out how this is a question and if it's the selectmen's responsibility. So one of the things I've noticed is that as we set our budget and we collect tax revenue and then the year fulfills and the spending is completed, there's sometimes or often a difference in what we actually spend and what we budgeted. My understanding is that money gets put into the general fund, and then the next year we may have a warrant article that will state that they need a new piece of equipment and that the money would come from no new taxation. And I feel that taxpayers believe, oh, geez, well, we don't have to pay for it. Well, we already did. What we didn't do is we didn't get that taxes back. As selectmen, how do you feel about that, number one? And number two, would you support rewriting the language on how that reads in the warrant article, where it might state the money comes from taxes that were previously collected and not returned to you, something along those lines?
Julian, you're first.
Thank you for that question. It's something that perplexes me all the time. I never like the warrant article that says no new taxes when you know darn well that money came from your taxes, and then some don't. We've had a lot of projects recently, things that were pushed down the road in the past and they just had to be done. And so lately we've had to do a lot of warrant articles. We did the safety complex, we did the highway garage, the salt shed, things that we all had to do. We got the landfill cap to worry about this year. Next year, there really aren't anything left. We've taken care of everything. I'm all for taking that money and giving it back to the taxpayer because we don't have to do any more projects. But yes, the language of no new taxes or no new taxes still bothers me even as a selectman. So I understand your question, but only difference it does is it doesn't end up increasing your taxes this year, because if you give it back, then you got to take it back. But if you don't vote for a warrant article, it still goes back into the general fund, and then it gives you the ability to give it back the next year. So it's still up to the voters. The voters are deciding whether to spend that money or not. You don't have to vote yes for everything.
Thank you, Julian. Bill?
Yep, I basically agree with really everything Julian just said. What's kind of really happened in the last few years is, was kind of alluded to, was there were a lot of projects that needed to get done in this town, and they just kept kicking the can down the road. So that was the main reason, I think, why the money didn't get sent back to the taxpayers. I know years ago, if there was money left over, it would get put back. Hopefully most of those projects are done in this town, and then when we do hit that point towards the end of the year, if there is money left, maybe we can start giving it back to the taxpayers to lower that tax rate. But some of those projects had to get done. Some of the culverts were collapsing, that had to get done. things like that. But I think it is definitely something that has to be looked at. If it's not a project that has to get done, then it should be looked back to giving back to the taxpayers to reduce their taxes.
Thank you. And Daryl?
Yeah, I believe that there should be some money left to cover emergencies and things like that. I don't believe they should be very large amounts of money because I can remember in 1989 saying, all the big projects are done, we have nothing left. Well, guess what? There's a whole bunch of things that always crop up. And I would like to see the people have the choice on what is going to be done, not taken out of a fund that we don't have a control over at that point. So to answer your question, no, I don't like it, and I think that there has to be some there, but not a whole bunch.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think we have another question from the audience. This will be for Bill first.
Yeah, this is Jim Peck again. I'm going to ask the same question I asked the Budget Committee. Just your opinion, or whether you know, who do the selectmen, the Board of Selectmen in the town of Plaistow report to? And who should they report to?
I really think that's a pretty easy question. Really, the Board of Selectmen, as well as any other elected official in town, it's your support to the citizens of Plaistow. The citizens of Plaistow elected you, and they can elect you out of office as well, one way or the other, but it's the citizens of Plaistow. Bottom line, that's who you report to, and that's who you're responsible for. Every decision you make is for the good of the town as a whole. It's for the citizens, and you need to listen to them for what they want, what they consider wants and needs.
Thank you. Daryl?
Just what Bill said. It's an easy question. You report to the people of the town.
Yep, same answer. It's you report to the people of the town, and it also means like previous planning board members that came up. The planning board members respond to, not planning board members, but the budget committee members report to the people of the town, and that just shows an RSA. The final budget is determined by the budget committee, not the Board of Selectmen. If there's a difference in the numbers, the budget committee's numbers are what goes. So that's kind of an answer to a previous question, that they report to the people.
Thank you.
Thank you. This next question, let me ask for the internet again. Anybody on the internet? Nobody for the internet for you guys. You're getting off easy from the internet. I don't know why. Next question is first to Daryl. Please elaborate on your plans as a selectman to lower spending and lower property taxes.
I think the best way to lower spending and property taxes is to especially look hard at things that maybe, like someone else had said, are wishes versus necessities. I think this town needs to go through a stream of maybe a couple of 3 years where we don't do anything but what's absolutely necessary. Let everybody catch their breath. Let everybody have a chance to, go through the season without worrying about a tax increase. Let the people that are really struggling, and I see a lot of them and talk to a lot of them, especially the older folks that are struggling mightily and just want to be able to stay in town. So let's give them a break and just cut out anything extraneously that we can.
Thank you. Julian?
Yes, I agree with Daryl. It's time to take a breather. We've been working hard the last few years. Like I said, a lot of the big projects are pretty much done. It's time to take a breather. These are hard times. We get the COVID. People lost jobs. Some of them are in this room. I'm looking right at them. And it's hard to deal with. I know what it's like to not have a job. And last time we had a bad economy or whatever. But the other thing is, it's a matter of expenditures. You can sometimes get the same job done with less money. So it's a matter of, like, even in the corporate world, which the government doesn't seem to do as well. I don't know why, but it's a matter of efficiency. You can sometimes get the same job or the same task done with less money just by doing it a little bit different. You have to think out of the box. There's ways to do it. You just have to be able to open up your mind, listen to people, get input, and make some hard decisions.
Thank you, Julian. And Bill?
I would agree. It seems like most of the major projects are pretty much done in town, at least so we could probably get through the next couple of years, putting a pause on a lot of different things. I also think what needs to happen, and it seemed like there was a little bit of a disconnect maybe this year and in the last few years between the Board of Selectmen and the Budget Committee. I think they need to work closer together. At least if nothing, the chairs and the vice chairs of both of those should talk more frequently to figure out what needs to get done and what wants to get done in the town, as well as all the department heads need to come in, and probably more than just budget season, probably come in a few times during the year in front of the Board of Selectmen, you know, the Budget Committee, so they can go over what they foresee that they may possibly need coming up in the next year or two. So then you can sit there and you can plan for it. Obviously, there are grants and different funds
10
like that
seconds.
out there as well that need to be looked in a little bit more. I mean, the fire department's a great example of that. He's found all kinds of grants, and I think some of the other departments can as well.
Thank you, Bill. And before we start our wrap-up, when we will start with Julian first, I just wanted to remind everyone, because I know what happens when we're all done. Everybody will leave and shut the computer off. A week from today, this wonderful building, we're here to vote, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. If you're concerned about your health, get an absentee ballot. That's available. So you can see Martha at the town clerk office and get an absentee ballot. We know you need to express yourself through voting. So either come and visit us. We will have 3 lines and 3 tables with ballot clerks to sign in. There'll be 3 lines outside. Hopefully we move you in real fast and out. And so I hope to see all of you here. If not, at least get a ballot and send it in. It's your constitutional right to vote, and I hope you express that. And thank you for doing that. Now the wrap-up, 60-second wrap-up. We're going to start with Julian. Julian.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. All right, being a selectman is not a part-time job, it's a commitment. The vote for the selectmen should not be simple popularity contest. It takes dedicated week after week to understand the agreements at the town, the regional, the state level, the workings of the town, and to stay up to date on all of them. Then collaborating on what we should do next. With each and every decision, I picture my neighbors who have trouble meeting their bills, including the increasing tax burden. I picture all the people living in Plaistow and the quality of the small town life they wish to preserve. I keep in mind residents and business owners that need supporting infrastructure and balance that against the needs of our citizens while still protecting the environment as well. Realistically, taxes go up because costs go up. We tackled several large, long, overdue projects over the past few years. However, with these finally complete, I'm excited to see light at the end of this tunnel. I see no need for any more costly warrant articles in the near future, so we should be able to return more good tax dollars to you. I ask for your vote to continue as your selectman on Thursday, March 9th.
Thank you, Julian. Daryl.
Yes, I would love to have you go to the ballot box and check off Daryl Britton for your selectman. But these 2 gentlemen, Bill and yourself, I'm pleased that you guys are running. Again, I'm pleased that anybody that runs. To me, it's a real treasure for the town for you to do something like that. So if nothing else, please vote. I will work as hard as I can to be a good servant to all of you, and I will take and look over everything that comes across the table. I won't let anything go by me, and be there when you need me. Thank you.
Thank you, Daryl. And Bill.
Yes, I agree with some of the things Daryl just said. One of the most important things is to vote. Volunteering does take a lot of time, and anybody who does, I think, needs to be commended. I'd also like to thank the library, Bob, and everyone who's been here, everybody listening for attending, because it is important. I think anybody that's known me since I've moved here 24 years ago knows that I do believe in giving back to the town. I always have, and I always will. I think that's important. I always want to be part of the solution instead of part of the problem. I think that's important, and I do have a can-do attitude. If there's something in front of me, I figure out, let's get it done. What do we have to do to get it done? And I think that comes working together with the town. And I think I kind of have a good track record working with other departments and trying to get things done.
10 seconds.
And I would appreciate your consideration next week, next Tuesday, but do come out and vote. That's the most important thing. Thank you.
But a round of thanks for all of these candidates. And I want to thank all of you that watched on the internet, and hopefully next time you'll give us more questions. I want to thank all of you that came here tonight, and one big thanks for the library, all the people that helped put this on tonight, and please vote March 9th. Thank you very much. Have a great evening. God bless America.